Okay, it's about 8:17. I mean, excuse me, 8:47, but I'm looking at the other side of it. The September 9th, 2025. And we have a public hearing on the tax rate. Of course, last year we were at 0.4700. This year we're proposing a 0.4800 per hundred. And that, in looking at that, I know that, I believe it was 3 years ago, our tax rate was 0.5788. So it has drastically been reduced over the year, but that was our years. But yet the other side of it is when your no new revenue rate is 0.4622 and your voter approval rate is 0.4845, where do you set it? You know, because we have people moving here every day. And I'll put it like this. Say, for instance, the sheriff builds a brand new home. And Brother Rick, you can help me on this if I'm wrong.
Okay.
But sheriff builds a brand new house. He takes possession of that home in January. We don't see any revenue on it for about a year and a half. Is that correct?
Right.
More or less. Because it still has to hit the books. But yet we still have to provide services. The county still has to provide the service if you're in the unincorporated area, or even if you live in a municipality, we still have that on there. And, you know, through the use of interlocal agreements and such. So, you know, what are you doing a disservice in one regard? You know, if you set the tax rate at 0.4622, which is no new revenue rate, and this is all smoke and mirrors, guys. I mean, it, you know, I believe it was about 3 years ago, it was called the effective rate. And then next thing happens is you have the voter approval rate, which was called the rollback rate. And they're still the same thing. But here's how this works. We get our estimate from the CAD on what our taxable value is. And sometime, what was it this year, Brother Rick? It was around late June that we got the, we got the, you know, the estimate on the taxable values in late June. We finally got the certified values in late July. Then we had to wait on the comptroller's office to send us computations, which came in the middle of August, roughly. And then we had to do the numbers and see where it's going to land. And as the comptroller, and of course, Glenn is no longer the comptroller. He's the chancellor at Texas A&M, but we had a discussion one time about this. And he says, here's how this works. The legislature makes policy. Okay. The comptroller's office enforces policy. And we pass that policy enforcement down to the taxing entities, which would include everybody. It's the county, it's the cities, it's the school districts, it's an ESD, you know, all the above. And so when you look at that, you know, where you want to point the fingers. And the one thing that we always get is we collect for everybody except for two entities. I believe it's Devers and Tarkington ISD, those two ISDs. But yet, you know, we're bringing in, what's the last number we collected, Rick?
For the total?
Yeah.
Just south of 190 million.
South of 190 million. Okay. And that doesn't go all to the county. Okay. So it's just a small piece of it. And when you look at the breakdown, school districts are always going to be your highest. Municipalities in the county are roughly the same, more or less. And but yet there's three of them. And since I live in a municipality, and I also live in precinct 1, Bruce. Yeah. And then also live in Dayton ISD. I pay 3 of those. Plus also pay a hospital district tax as well. So all these numbers have to come in from, you know, the comptroller to what is the total computation for this. And this year we had that spread between Proposed tax rate, which is 48 cents. No new revenue rate was 46.22, and the voter approval tax rate was 48.45. And to put that in perspective, if I had a $250,000 home, I wish I did, I'd sell it. But if I had a $250,000 home that I lived in, and I'm paying 48 cents per hundred, first thing you do is you take the 250,000, divide that by 100, and that's 2,500. Okay, multiply that times 0.48, and I pay $1,200 in county tax. Okay, and that's probably a $25 difference between last year's tax rate and this year's tax rate. So it's an increase of $25. Do I like it? No, but I spend that much money on my grandkids at McDonald's in one drive-through. So just trying to put it in perspective, and no, it doesn't make me happy. But the other side of it is, if we don't do something, we're doing a disservice to the folks that live in Liberty County. So with that, I'll get off my soapbox. Anybody has anything else they want to talk about, you're more than welcome to. Brother Rick?
Judge, and I'm sure this wasn't the sheriff's house, but there was $730 million of new improvements that we're not getting taxes for, that were considered new improvements.
700 and what?
730 million.
730 million that we're not realizing any revenue from that. Okay.
And again, I'm sure that's not all the sheriff's house.
Yeah.
There's a lot of houses being built, and a lot of these things, again, don't come on until next year.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you know, the CAD says if you own it on January 1, then we bill you. But if you built it on, you know, a lot of these houses in construction, and
right,
so they're finished and occupied, and then it rolls into the next January. So there's a lot of that float that goes in there.
Mm-hmm.
And also with the, even though we're at 48, we're under the amount that would have triggered an election.
Right. Okay. You know, and looking back 10 years ago, that there used to be about a 12-cent spread, you know, back 10 years ago. And even up until 3 years ago, there was about a 12-cent spread between the effective rate and the rollback rate, which they call now the no new revenue rate and the voter approval rate. I mean, again, it's like, let's change the name of it, confuse everybody. But, you know, but we would always try to set it somewhere in the middle. But now the spread has become condensed between 4.622 and 4.845. So where do you set it? You know, that is fair to the taxpayers and also fair to the folks, in this case, that are moving here. Because if we don't do something, then, you know, it stays pretty much static, or maybe in this case, even stagnant. And so it's just it's food for thought. We're going to have another one of these hearings again later at the next meeting, regular meeting. But yet there it is. We always do two. We don't have to do two, but we prefer to do two. That way folks have the opportunity to say anything that are questions, concerns. But anyway, we're looking at right now 0.4800 per hundred. That's 48 cents per hundred proposed tax rate.
One other thing, of course, there's about 100 different calculations that go into figuring. I know y'all just deal with no new revenue and voter approval rate, but behind that, you prepare the truth taxation calculations, and it is over 100 calculations. I mean, if you're in TERS, if you get sales tax, there's just some of the things, you know, all the above that affect that bottom line. So
yeah,
it's food for thought in thinking of future transactions, that something that you may commit the county for the next 20 or 25 years
mm-hmm,
can impact the actual rate or the margin that you can use in calculating your budget. And just for instance, this year with all the legislative and all the news points is we want to do away with property taxes. Well, everybody, I mean, anyone who understands the whole property tax basis realizes just like where would we make up that $190 million that we collected? It's as much as people want to eliminate it, the legislature does its best to give exemptions to veterans and fallen service people and spouses of that. And you see that those are just eking away a little bit. But to reasonably think we're going to eliminate property taxes, and as you know, they even went in special session and at midnight hour, they couldn't decide on it. But one of the proposals, which could have some serious implications, was right now the code allows the entities to go up 3.5%. So that's kind of your margin.
Yep.
Same thing last year, this year's value is 3.5%. As you know, even though we say inflation's not what it used to be, things are still more expensive, and the county, of course, has to, fund that through their budget. Especially taxing entities can actually go up to 8%. Yep. Or if you're in a disaster, 8%. It used to be 8% for everybody, but then they lowered that down. But there was a proposal this year, and it got a lot of attention to basically limit the counties to a 1% increase, or you have to go to the voters. Right. And that did not have the traction to get it passed, but again, they're getting a lot of pressure to, just get these property taxes in line. Again, it's not, they haven't come up with an alternative. They just really say, we're gonna work on this, but they haven't figured out, because it's a budget. I mean, you have to have expenses, and they have to be funded universally some way. So,
there was one bill in there, Rick, that was anything that was above the no new revenue tax rate would trigger an election.
Yeah.
And my thoughts on that were, we don't have the computations until August, late August. And so we're going to have an election, right? Okay. When are you going to have it? When we have to have a budget in place by October 1st. That's a juggling act. The other side of it is, one thing there's about 7 county judges have been discussing. Everybody wants to go to a consumption tax if they could, which is, to me, is a sales tax. That shares the expense with anybody that passes through the state of Texas. And we're like, our biggest cost is always law enforcement, mental health, fire. Let's see. Well, of course, like, the fire departments, EMS and such. Those things, why not impose a 2-cent sales tax increase that the state would fund those to the counties? And we could truly see a reduction in, the tax rate. And, you want to see a proposed tax rate of lower than 46.22. Let the state send out a check for that. Would it work? I don't know, but it was a consideration. I don't think it landed on anybody's radar to where it was enough to where they'd have discussion about it. But then again, there's always a special session.
Every county does have a sales tax that does lower the property tax already in place, so we have to deduct that off your margin. So,
right.
Because anything that helps reduce, so I think the city of Cleveland and Liberty County are the 2 that actually we have to make that adjustment as well. So we are getting some relief from sales tax already, because that was already passed.
Right. That's been several years back. But
yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No, I don't think anybody can get too excited about a tax increase, but
no.
But I think we really need to see the budget before we can even comment on what's the path going forward. So I'll just reserve any comments for that until after I can see the budget.
Okay, we'll get you a copy on Friday.
Okay.
All right.
There will be plenty of people get excited about taxes.
Okay. All righty. Well, it's a little bit after 9. We'll close this out and get ready for the regular meeting.